Hey, Smarter Vets, CJ Burnett here. And today I'm going to talk to you about tax brackets. I know you were sitting in your office today in the afternoon, we're just wondering, how do tax brackets actually work, right? It's a very common thing to have trying to roll across someone's mind. So when it comes to tax brackets, a lot of the times people think that just because they get in another tax bracket, that they end up having to spend the taxes actually go up by that amount on all of their income. An example of this is, let's say you had a cake, and if you make enough money to buy one piece of the cake for the year, and let's say your taxes are 10%, then people would say, okay, you give up 10% of that cake. And that is true. Let's say the first tier is 10%. Okay, you have 10% of that first cake to the government. And if you are lucky enough to make two pieces of cake, enough money to buy two pieces of cake that year, and now you're in the 12% tax bracket, then you would pay 12% tax on the two pieces of cake. That's not how that works. The tiers work in a way where if you made the first piece of cake that you made, you paid 10% of tax on that. And then that second piece of cake that you made, you would pay 12% on just that one piece. In other words, if you average it out, it's 11%. And this is why a lot of people don't really realize that there's a difference between marginal tax brackets and effective tax brackets, right? So there's a tax that you pay on every additional dollar that you make per the year. Let's say in that scenario, if I made enough money to get a third piece of cake, and now I'm in a, say, 15% tax bracket, I would pay 10% tax on the first piece of cake that I made that year. I'd pay 12% tax on the second piece of cake, and then I'd pay 15% on the third piece of cake. And so the next tax bracket that you get in, you're just paying that amount of tax on that next tax bracket. So if the 15% of that third cake, let's say if you were to make only enough to buy half of that third piece of cake, then you would only be paying 15% on that one little slice. I hope this helps. I hope this brings some clarity to you around how tax brackets actually work. And maybe now, whenever you're talking to your accountant and they talk about the difference between your marginal and your effective, you can go, oh yeah, I remember that from that video that CJ did on YouTube that you watched because you were so worried about how tax brackets work when you were in your office one day. So don't fret about getting into that next tax bracket. You're going to pay more taxes, but it's okay. It doesn't mean that now all of your income is going to be taxed at that new amount. I hope this helps bring clarity to something that maybe you didn't have much about, and I'll see you next time.